Good Wednesday morning. It is 6:30. I'm Dominic Ben. Before we send it over to First Alert meteorologist Evan Thomason, we have the latest on the deadly mass shooting from Sunday. This morning, we're getting the first look at Charles Ford. He's the man Shreveport police say helped Shamar Elkins, the suspect in Shreveport Cedar Grove mass shooting, get a gun. This is an old booking photo from the Caddo Correctional Center. Here's a look at the gun they say Elkins used to kill 7 of his children, their cousin, and hurt 2 women. Shreveport police and the ATF say they started investigating a firearms trace on the rifle Elkins allegedly used to commit the mass shooting. Agents say the original buyer gave the gun to Ford, and Ford later admitted he kept it under his car seat. Ford is facing a few charges, including felon in possession of a firearm and making false statements to federal agents. Records show Ford has a history of simple burglary charges dating back to the 1990s.
He killed 8 children in a single night. That's the headline people remember. That's the part that shocks the world. But now, there's something else investigators are looking at. Because according to authorities, this case may not be as simple as one man acting alone. And a new arrest could change everything we thought we knew. This is the story of what happened. And the question that still hasn't gone away. How did he get the weapon in the first place? In the early hours of that morning, everything seemed normal on the outside. Neighbors later said they didn't hear anything unusual at first. No signs of what was about to unfold. No indication that something horrific was about to happen inside that home. But inside, something had already shifted. According to investigators, the situation escalated quickly. What started as a domestic situation turned into something far more devastating. By the time authorities were called and arrived on the scene, it was already too late. 8 children had lost their lives. The scale of what happened stunned even seasoned investigators. This wasn't just another case. This wasn't just another crime scene. It was something that would leave an entire community shaken. In the hours that followed, information began to come out slowly. Authorities worked to piece together a timeline. Who was inside the home? What led up to this moment? And, most importantly, how did it escalate this far? One of the first things investigators focused on was the weapon used. Because in cases like this, the weapon tells a story. Where it came from, how it was obtained, and whether there were warning signs that could have been missed. At first, the assumption was straightforward. A single individual acting alone. But as the investigation continued, that assumption began to change. Authorities started tracing the origin of the firearm. And that's when things got complicated. Because according to reports, the weapon didn't just appear. It had a history. Like many firearms used in crimes, it had passed through hands before. And each transfer raised new questions. Who had access to it? Was it legally owned? And could someone else have known what might happen? Investigators followed the trail carefully. Every record, every connection, every possible link. And eventually, that trail led to something unexpected. A second person. According to law enforcement sources, a man has now been taken into custody in connection with the weapon. Authorities allege that this individual may have played a role in how the firearm was obtained. At this stage, officials are being careful with their wording. They are not saying this person was involved in the crime itself, but they are investigating whether he helped make it possible. And that distinction matters, because in cases like this, the line between direct involvement and indirect responsibility can be complicated. The arrest has shifted the direction of the investigation. What was once seen as a single act is now being looked at through a wider lens. Investigators are asking new questions. Was the weapon transferred legally? Were there warning signs that were ignored? And could this situation have been prevented? According to reports, the individual now in custody has already been questioned. Authorities say there were inconsistencies in statements, details that didn't fully line up, and that's what led to further investigation. But even with this new development, many questions remain unanswered, because the focus isn't just on what happened that night, it's on everything that led up to it. And for many people following the case, that's the most difficult part. The idea that something like this doesn't happen in isolation, that there are often warning signs, moments that, in hindsight, seem impossible to ignore. Reports have suggested that there may have been prior concerns, previous incidents, past behavior, things that, at the time, may not have seemed connected. But after something like this happens, everything is re-examined. Every detail matters. Every interaction is looked at again. And sometimes, patterns begin to appear. For investigators, this is where the work becomes even more complex, because they are not just building a timeline of one night, they are building a timeline of everything leading up to it. And that includes understanding how the weapon became part of the situation. The idea that someone else may have played a role, whether knowingly or not, has added a new layer to the case. It's no longer just about what happened, it's about how it became possible. And that's a much harder question to answer. In the community, the impact has been profound. People are still trying to process what happened, still trying to understand how something like this could take place so close to home. And now, with the news of another arrest, there's a sense that the story isn't over, that there are still pieces missing. Some are asking whether the system failed, whether there were opportunities to intervene earlier, whether anything could have been done differently. These are the kinds of questions that come up in cases like this, and they don't have easy answers. Authorities have emphasized that the investigation is ongoing. They are continuing to gather evidence, continuing to interview witnesses, and continuing to follow every lead. Because in a case of this scale, nothing can be overlooked. The second arrest doesn't close the case. If anything, it opens it up even further, because it suggests that there may be more to uncover, more connections to examine, more details that haven't come to light yet. For now, officials are urging the public to be patient, to allow the investigation to continue without interference, and to rely on confirmed information rather than speculation. Because in situations like this, misinformation can spread quickly, and that can make an already difficult situation even more complicated. What remains clear is this: 8 lives were lost, families were changed forever, and a community is still searching for answers. The question of how the weapon was obtained is now central to the case, because it represents a point where things might have been different, a point where intervention might have been possible, and that's why investigators are focusing on it so closely. As more information comes out, the picture may become clearer, or it may become more complicated. But either way, the goal remains the same: to understand exactly what happened, and to ensure accountability where it's needed. For now, the case continues, with new developments, new questions, and a growing understanding that this story may be more complex than it first appeared. Because sometimes, the most important part of a story isn't just what happened, it's everything that made it possible. And in this case, that question is still being answered. Because as investigators continue to look deeper into the case, one thing is becoming clear: this didn't start that night. According to reports, there were signs, subtle at first, then more concerning over time. People who knew the situation have described moments that, in hindsight, now seem impossible to ignore. But, like many cases, those moments didn't immediately connect into a clear warning. And that's what makes this part of the story so difficult, because it raises the question no one wants to ask: could any of this have been prevented? As authorities continue their investigation, attention has shifted toward the path of the firearm itself. Not just who used it, but how it got there. According to law enforcement, tracing a weapon is rarely straightforward. It often involves multiple transactions, transfers, and points of access. And in this case, that path appears to be more complex than initially believed. The individual now in custody is accused of having a connection to that chain. Authorities allege that the weapon may have passed through his possession before ending up in the hands of the shooter. At this stage, investigators are working to determine exactly what that connection looks like. Was it a legal transfer? Was it careless handling? Or was there something more intentional? Those are the questions that remain under investigation. One of the most critical elements in cases like this is intent. And right now, that's something investigators are still trying to understand. Because while the act itself is clear, the events leading up to it are not. And when another person becomes part of that chain, even indirectly, it changes how the entire case is viewed. According to reports, the man arrested in connection with the firearm initially denied certain details when questioned. Authorities say that inconsistencies in his statements led them to look closer, and that closer look is what resulted in charges. Now, investigators are examining communication records, timelines, and any possible interactions that could clarify what happened, because even a small detail can change everything. At the same time, the focus hasn't shifted away from the victims. 8 children lost their lives, and for the families affected, the investigation is about more than just answers. It's about accountability. It's about understanding how something like this could happen, and whether anyone else played a role in making it possible. In situations like this, public reaction often evolves as new information comes out. At first, there is shock, then grief, and eventually, questions. Right now, those questions are growing louder, especially as details about the firearm and the second arrest continue to emerge. Some are asking whether the system worked the way it was supposed to. Others are asking whether warning signs were missed. And many are asking whether this could have been stopped before it reached this point. These are not easy questions, and they don't have simple answers. Law enforcement officials have emphasized that the investigation is still active. They are continuing to follow leads, continuing to analyze evidence, and continuing to build a complete picture of what happened. Because in a case this complex, every piece matters. The second arrest has also brought renewed attention to how firearms are handled, stored, and transferred. Because beyond this case, it raises a broader issue. What responsibility do individuals have when it comes to securing a weapon? And what happens when that responsibility is not upheld? For investigators, the goal is not just to understand what happened, it's to understand how it became possible. Because prevention is often rooted in understanding. As more details come out, the story may continue to evolve. New information may confirm existing theories, or it may challenge them. But either way, the investigation is moving forward. For now, what remains is a case that has left a lasting impact, a case that continues to unfold, and a case that raises difficult but necessary questions. Because sometimes the most important part of understanding a tragedy isn't just looking at the moment it happened, it's looking at everything that led up to it. And in this case, that includes a question investigators are still trying to answer. Not just what happened that night, but how the weapon got there in the first place. As the investigation continues, authorities are expected to release more information when it becomes available. Until then, the case remains open, the questions remain, and the search for answers continues. If there are further developments, they could change the direction of the case once again. Because as we've already seen, even one new detail can shift everything. And right now, this is no longer just the story of one night. It's the story of everything that led up to it, and everything that may still come to light.